Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. It has definitely been a long time since we have updated the top 5 mid laners, so I feel like it is definitely time to do so. I'm sure most of you are wondering what exactly you should be playing, especially considering that there is about a month left of the ranked season, so this is the time that most people will start to grind out the ranked games and try to hit that elo that they want, whether it's gold, plat, diamond, masters, or even challenger. So hopefully after this video you have a better idea as to which champions you should be playing in the mid lane for the best chance of getting success. Now this video is going to be made in collaboration with Pro Guides, a very familiar name that have a site where they try to improve your League of Legends gameplay and game knowledge. I have a link down below to a free trial, definitely recommend checking them out, on top of their cool feature where you can talk to high-elo players almost at any time. But without much further ado, let's get right into the number 5 spot. So starting things off for us here is going to be Twisted Fate. Now, Twisted Fate is a very hard champion not to include in a list of top 5 mid laners because, like I said in several videos already, he is just kind of made for solo queue. Because one of the best things about solo queue is the fact that chances are both teams are going to be relatively uncoordinated, and a lot of the times you'll have someone on the enemy team that will potentially easily tilt or overextend or just make a lot of mistakes. What does Twisted Fate do? He adds an insane amount of global pressure, one that a lot of people will simply not respect and will overextend, to which you can teleport with your ultimate, pick off champions, get kills for your team, and not only snowball yourself, but also snowball the lane that you just ganked, whether it's top lane, bot lane, or even maybe somewhere in the jungle. His ultimate just essentially adds this extra layer of difficulty for the enemy team, and they have to play with it in mind or else they will most likely regret their decisions. On top of this, he has a lot of great options with his W ability, whether you want more mana and damage, AoE CC, or a single target lockdown, of course being the gold card. He has great farm potential because of his passive, which gives him a bunch of extra gold, which gets your items that much quicker and gets you the power spike that much sooner. The fact that his Q ability hits every single target for full damage and doesn't have any sort of reduced damage effects for more targets hit is also fantastic as well. And his E ability combined with Lichbane and also his W is gonna be surprising amount of burst damage to the point where you can truly play TF like an assassin, and whenever a team fight does begin, you can just instantly teleport to the backline and assassinate a high priority target like the enemy mid laner or the ADC. All in all, Twisted Fate is fantastic when it comes to solo queue, but he does require a certain level of macro play where you do pay attention to the map and you're constantly looking for places to teleport with your ultimate or even the summoner teleport if you choose to take it. But speaking of which, let's quickly talk about what kind of build you want to do when playing Twisted Fate in solo queue. So now, it all depends on what you're facing. Are you getting Abyssal Scepter or are you not? Because if you're not, then your items are going to be along the lines of Rod of Ages, Lucidity Boots, Lichbane, Zhonya's Hourglass, Rabadon's Void Staff, plus your runes giving you 10% CDR in the blues will give you a total of 40%. However, if you do choose to go for the Abyssal Scepter maybe after your Rod of Ages, then obviously you don't need that 10% in your blues and your runes, so you can easily swap them out for just magic resistance or something of the sort. You obviously want to go for that Thunderlords for the added burst because it's quite easy for Twisted Fate to proc it, and you want to get your W level 1 and then max your Q first, W second, E last, and ultimate whenever you can. But let us move on to the number 4 spot where we will be talking about Brand. Now keep in mind, all of the champions that I list in this video are champions that I would also personally play when playing the mid lane and trying to climb, and the champions that I feel like are just very strong currently. So Brand for me is without a question a champion I would pick for mid lane because I really do feel like he is very strong at the moment. We saw some display of him as a support champion in Worlds, but he can easily work just as well, if not better, in the mid lane. He has a lot of damage in his skid, he has a great amount of lane pressure with a lot of damage as well. His passive is just insanely strong when it comes to killing the tanks like top laners or even junglers. But one of the best things for me that I think just makes it and just makes me want to play him because he just feels almost freelo and just really easy to kill people with is the synergy between his abilities, his passive, and Rylai's Crystal Scepter. His passive just constantly ticking will obviously keep proccing Rylai's Crystal Scepter. It'll make landing your Q just that much easier, landing your full combo after that as well with your W, your ultimate, and I mean, it really is just that easy. His ultimate is also one of those things where, in a way kind of similar to Twisted Fate, you have to play with your mindset around it, so the enemy team, if they ever group and team fight and they're just simply way too stacked up, Brand's ultimate is just gonna annihilate their face, and if Brand's passive also ends up proccing, well, let's just hope that the enemy team isn't too grouped up or else they'll just instantly all die. Brand also has some pretty decent wave clear in his kit, though the only bad thing is the fact that you have to use more than one ability to do so, so in certain situations it can be a little bit awkward, so even though it's not the best wave clear, it's still not the worst. But all in all, I mean, I really don't feel like he's all that difficult to play. If you're bad at skill shots, again, the Rylai's Crystal Scepter almost makes it that they aren't even skill shots anymore. You land your abilities, you do a lot of damage, your passive will annihilate almost everyone's face, and it's just easy to do, a lot of damage, very strong, and something that I would personally love to play because I feel like it truly is almost freeload. So if you end up trying it out and playing it in the mid lane, then let's take a quick look at how you want to build him. So you definitely want to get your W level 1 and then your E ability level 2 so you can start synergizing those two abilities with your E into W, Q level 3, and then max your W first, Q second, E third. For items, usually you want to go for the Morale-Anomicon, obviously your boots of choice, usually the Sork boots, Rylai's Crystal Scepter being an absolute must, and then if they have a lot of tanks, the Liandry's Torment is just perfect. It synergizes well with his kit and you will just destroy their faces, or you can skip it out and just go straight for something like the Void Staff, the Rabadons, maybe a Luden's Echo, or things like that. Your masteries are going to be 18, 12, 0, going for that Deathfire because it again synergizes with his kit. I mean, that's just what's so amazing about Brand. His passive, his abilities all together with Deathfire, Rylai's, and even Liandry's Torment, the synergy is just way too crazy. And top it off with a pretty typical rune page for AP mid laners, going for that CDR 10% blues, the rest being magic resistance, HP per level yellows, magic penetration reds, and flat AP quins. Following Brand, we have another champion who is somewhat similar in concept, Malzahar. Now in certain situations, I would definitely argue that Malzahar is kind of just a better version of Brand because they both have very similar synergies, they both go for the same masteries in the Keystone, they both go for the Rylai synergy with the Liandry's Torment potentially. It's very similar. But Malzahar for the most part is just easier to play, it's easier to push in waves with him, and his ultimate is literally a point and click type ultimate where you just lock someone down, your team just goes right on top of them, and chances are you just got a kill. He scales decently well, his Q ability does do a lot of damage, it's essentially an AoE silence, which in certain situations can be a little bit awkward to land, but if you do happen to get that big Q, it can be insanely game changing. All in all, the way you build Malzahar and the way his kit synergizes with his Voidlings as well, and just how easy it is to catch someone off with his ultimates, he does make for an easy champion with a passive that's fairly forgiving, and I mean, if you want to get some freeload and you want to play a champion that's not difficult to play, Malzahar is a pretty damn good option. Now when it comes to building him, this is how you want to do it. Rod of Ages is great, but you can definitely go for the Morale-Anomicon instead. But other than that, I mean, the build order is pretty much the exact same thing as Brand, like I was saying. For abilities, you definitely want to get your E ability level 1, W level 2 to start the pushing, and then you can definitely put a point into E once again to get the pushing power even higher, put a point into Q at level 4, and then max E, followed by Q, followed by W, and ultimate whenever you can. The exact same masteries as Brand, abusing the synergy with his E ability, his Voidlings, and also Deathfire, and even the runes are the exact same as well. So not much more to say, pretty much similar to Brand, just a slightly better version in my opinion, just because he's easier. Definitely play him if you want some preload. But let's jump into the number 2 spot, Aurelion Sol. Now this is a champion we've seen dominating worlds and also dominating solo queue. And this is a champion that I would personally even ban just because of how annoying he can really be to deal with if someone that picks Aurelion Sol really knows what they're doing. When it comes to having a lot of global pressure and just also being able to do sort of annoying damage that you can't really get to, and it just makes things overall much more complicated than it should be, Aurelion Sol is definitely one of the best ones to do so with. So let's talk a little bit more about him. So what makes him so damn strong? Well, first of all, level 1, you get your W, you activate it as the laning phase starts, and you can push in both of the minions, the melee and the ranged ones at the same time. Almost no champion can simply react to it, and you push them in under the tower, they have trouble CSing, you can go take the enemy junglers, raptors, then go back to mid lane and just keep pushing it in over and over and over. On top of this, he also builds a relatively tanky, annoying type build. It's very similar to Malzahar or Brand, where with the Rylai's Crystal Scepter and his W on top of also getting that GLP Hextech item, you're just constantly dishing out this annoying slow damage from a very far range. It's consistent, the damage is actually very high. You set up your Q and your ultimate very well as well, and I mean, it really is just not fun to play against. It makes things very difficult, and if you're facing Aurelion Sol and you don't really have some champion that can just instantly jump on top of him and maybe stop his W or his passive or just essentially try to kill him as fast as possible, Aurelion Sol is going to be kind of chilling in the backline. His W is on, his Rylai's Crystal Scepter is doing its thing, and you can't really stop him. That's just the kind of champion he is. His Q ability can get easily a 3 to 5 man stun as well, or you can do those huge Rasengan or Dragon Ball Z style Q abilities where you just go right down the mid lane and you cover up the whole lane and you just get a free tower. All in all, Aurelion Sol very annoying to deal with and also very strong, but he is also kind of unique and difficult to play, so definitely recommend playing a few normals before bringing him into ranked. But here's how you want to build him. First of all, you obviously want to point in your W first, Q second, and then you can either put a second point in your W at level 3 or wait till level 4. Either way, max your W first, Q second, E last, and ultimate whenever you can. For your items, you definitely want to get the GLP Hex Tech one, your Boots of Swiftness, or even maybe your Sork Boots, Rallis Crystal Scepter, Void Staff, Rabadons, and you can go for something like a Banshee's Veil as well. For the Keystone, you definitely want Storm Raider Surge because the movement speed is extremely important to constantly have your W sticking onto your target, on top of also just being able to kite and maintain your Q if possible. And your runes are going to be Magic Penetration Reds, HP per level Yellows, Flat Magic Resistance Blues, and Movement Speed Quints. Now the final champion we'll be talking about in the number 1 spot for the mid lane tier list for this patch is without question Syndra. Now there isn't a whole lot to say because I'm sure most of you expected this. Syndra is without question the best in slot pick at the moment. She does an insane amount of damage. She has one of the best laning phases of any mid lane champion as well, at least the AP mid laners. She can use her Q while moving, she can have insane damage at level 2 with her QW, proccing Thunderlords. Her ultimate, just 2 Qs on the ground, can most likely kill almost any single mid laner as long as they're around 70% HP. She has one of the best presence as well, one of the most damage in her kit. A very long range stun that can hit multiple targets if you do it correctly. She has a lot of depth to her kit, and I mean, there really isn't a whole lot more to say. She's just simply the best champion for the mid lane at the moment. Highly recommend picking her up if you haven't, because I mean, you really should. And you should definitely ban her if you're not playing her, if no one on your team is playing her, because you don't want to face her. But let's talk about how you want to build her very quickly. So you get your Q level 1, W level 2, and then I like to get my Q level 3 as well, unless you're getting an early jungle gank, at which you want to get your E ability level 3 instead. Either way, max your Q first, W second, E third. For your items, you want to get Morel Anomicon, maybe a Luden Zeka if you're snowballing, but then go up into the Rallis Crystal Scepter, get the Sork Boots, Rabadons, Void Staff, and the overall typical items. Your Keystone is Thunderlords without question, and you of course want to go the typical AP mid lane page where you get Magic Penetration Reds, HP per level Yellows, 10% CDR per level Blues, and also the rest of it being Magic Resistance and Flat AP Quints. Now before we end off the video, there's 2 quick honorable mentions that I want to talk about, the first of which being Ryze. Ryze's win rate is definitely quite low, it's around 44% or so I mean, he is a difficult champion and he is kind of difficult to make work. He does take a lot of practice and he's not easy to play, but if you understand how to play him, he can do a lot of things. He's kind of similar in a way to Talia, where the ultimate can either be really good or really bad. I mean, it can create some crazy plays and great cutoffs, or you can maybe put yourself and maybe even your team in a situation where you're just gonna die and you're not gonna be doing anything useful. But late game, the damage on his E ability plus his Q is just absolutely disgusting. The second honorable mention is going to be Cassiopeia. Now, I wanted to put her in the number 5 spot, but I just feel like I have to talk about Twisted Fate. Cassiopeia is somewhat of a difficult champion still to play, but she has crazy lane pressure as well. The only champion that can maybe beat her out of laning phase is someone like Victor or Syndra. Either way, she does scale very well. She has huge carry potential in the late game, and she is a very strong champion with one of the best abilities in the game, being her W. But either way guys, that is about it for this video. There you have it, my top 5 mid laners for this current patch. This season is almost finished, so I hope most of you are trying to grind it out and get that rank that you really want. Hopefully this list will help you if you're playing mid lane or if you main mid lane or whatever. So if you did enjoy it, definitely hit that like button to show your support. Make sure to share this with your friends. But I thank each and every one of you so much for watching, and I hope to see you for the next video. Peace.